Welcome back, everybody. For the next session this morning, we will break down how a powerful maritime monitoring platform uses radar, satellite imagery, and machine learning to detect illegal and suspicious vessel behavior and combat illegal fishing in real time. To give us an introduction to what Skylight is, please welcome Charlie Brown from Skylight Program, who is joining us from Singapore. Charlie.
Okay, thanks. Good morning from Singapore. I'm very happy to be joining you virtually. Wish I could be there in person. And I'll give a short presentation on Skylight and the tools that we share regarding maritime domain awareness that is particularly useful for monitoring illicit activity at sea, especially regarding illegal fishing and other illicit activity. And also I'll highlight some of our new tools that are being developed in Skylight and our very close collaboration with Earth Ranger. And I'm clicking through my slides, so hopefully you can see them on your side. So just very briefly, Skylight is part of the Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence, just like Earth Ranger. And we build a tool that is intended to assist people working in conservation spaces and the governments that work on illegal fishing and other maritime problems. And we share this data for free with governments and NGOs, similar to exactly the same like our sister organization, Earth Ranger. Which I'm sure you're hearing a lot about from Tony, and just want to highlight up front that the integration is very close, and we feed our data not only into Earth Ranger, but also allow those organizations that are already using Earth Ranger that want to go deeper into the maritime domain awareness info and Skylight to access Skylight. So first and foremost, we're building AI tools not to replace people doing the job, but to enhance and help them do their job better. That's very important. That's our philosophy. And I want to highlight that from the beginning, that the AI tools that we're developing are intended to help people do their jobs better. Nobody knows the waters in the area better than the people themselves. And AI can just help them do the job more efficiently by integrating data and drawing out insights from massive amounts of data. And that's what Skylight does. In the maritime world, there are basically mountains of data that are available. Too much that any one person can comprehend it at any given time. So Skylight is a tool that helps analyze the maritime domain awareness data that we have access to continuously 24/7, applying the AI models that we've taught to recognize specifically fishing activity, various illicit fishing activities. And we do this in a real-time or near real-time basis to help the users. And again, it's shared at no cost with authorized users from government agencies like Coast Guards, but also fisheries agencies like BFAR and others, and also NGOs that we partner with, like those of you in the room. There is a lot of maritime domain awareness data that's available from ships at sea, and I'll go through the different categories in a brief set. But the point of the Skylight tool is to help the analyst sift through in real time the massive amounts of data, for example, AIS data and others that I'll talk about, but to bring out the key insights. Where are vessels, based on the data, behaving in a way that the analyst needs to focus on that might be related to fishing? We remove the noise, and we help with surveillance maritime surveillance activities so that you can be more efficient in the allocation of your time and your resources to respond to suspicious activity. In particular, the model is trained to recognize several different categories of behavior related to fishing. We've trained the model based on massive amounts of data and, more importantly, the experts in fishing and illegal fishing monitoring to recognize, and we've trained the model, it's learned when a vessel and when the data from the vessel indicates that it might, with some probability, be doing a fishing activity, and the analyst would be able to look at that highlighted data and understand if they need to investigate that further with other resources. So the way Skylight does that, the model is first looking at AIS data, and I acknowledge up front, not all illegal fishing activity is done on ships that are broadcasting AIS, but some is. And it's very important to understand when the ships with AIS that might be supposed to be doing something else or might be actually fishing. And that's what we have taught the model to recognize. Also, other activities when ships with AIS might be entering an area like a marine protected area where they're not supposed to be. So the first category of events that we've trained the model to recognize are fishing, suspected fishing activity based on the behavior of the vessel from the data from AIS. Actually, we could also use other forms of data. If a country is willing to share, we can also take in the VMS data that the fisheries agency might have, although that's usually often not publicly shareable or commercially available. Some countries have privately shared it with Skylight to apply our models to, and in certain cases that can be explored as a possibility. But first and foremost, with the AIS data, we've trained the model to recognize when a vessel is maneuvering in a way that suggests with some probability that it's fishing rather than merely transiting or anchoring. We've trained it to recognize a whole subset of different fishing behaviors that experts have documented and trained the model to recognize, especially when they're doing it in an area that they shouldn't be. Another category of events that Skylight will automatically highlight is rendezvous between two vessels with AIS on. We call that a standard rendezvous. And if the two vessels, even if they don't indicate that they're having a rendezvous, if they're operating in close proximity for a certain amount of time, Skylight will highlight that with a little arrow icon and suggest that these ships might be rendezvousing, which is a frequent activity in fishing, especially illegal fishing, when ships need to pass their catch to a mothership or when they need to refuel. Also, importantly, we've trained the model to recognize a dark rendezvous when only one of two ships might have its AIS on, but it is maneuvering in a way that suggests that another vessel is alongside. This is very helpful for monitoring fishing areas where you might expect ships to be rendezvousing and there might be a requirement for them to be broadcasting, but then one of them is not. So again, this helps the analyst to prioritize what they need to investigate and how they need to allocate their surveillance assets to check on that ship. Besides using AIS data, the other very important major data set that Skylight analyzes is satellite-based data, and this is really helpful for detecting vessels, especially vessels that aren't broadcasting AIS that might be dark vessels. So there's several different data sets of satellite information and data that's available. Some are the traditional satellite imagery that we're all used to looking at, but also some other ones are important to mention, and I'll go through them one by one. The important point to highlight, though, is anybody can look through if they have access to the satellite imagery, which often comes at a cost. But anybody can spend time looking at an image, looking for vessels. However, to do it on a scale of across hundreds of square kilometers and do it in real time is not something a single person can do effectively for a large region, especially for an archipelagic state like Philippines with a huge maritime area that you're concerned with. So the way the Skylight and the AI model helps is that it near real time, as soon as the data is received from the source of the satellite data, highlight where all the suspected vessels are. So first, there is the traditional satellite imagery. We call it electro-optical imagery that we're all used to seeing regularly when we think about satellite imagery. Basically a picture taken by a satellite from the sky. So the two primary sources of satellite imagery have is the European Union's Sentinel-2 system and also the US's Landsat system. Both of those systems share their data freely available to the whole world, and anybody can look at it on different software with their eyes, but to detect the vessels in there is what the special capability of Skylight does, and to do it as soon as the data is received by Skylight within seconds, it's detected all the possible vessels. And I'll highlight here that if it can correlate the detected vessel in the image with an AIS signal and make a suggestion that that vessel matches the AIS signal, it will match it and correlate that data. And if there is no AIS to correlate it with, we categorize it as a dark vessel. So this is very helpful for the analysts when they check this to understand what vessels in a particular area they need to investigate because they're not able to correlate it, and we would consider that a dark vessel that might need to be investigated. All forms of data and satellite data have pros and cons. The most important thing for Skylight and the data we get from Sentinel-2 and Landsat is to understand that it's not while the model analyzes it very quickly, there is a latency. The images are normally taken midday, and by the time the satellite has to orbit the Earth and downlink it to the station where there's a satellite downlink and process it on the European Union side or the US side, that takes a few hours. And so I live in Singapore, for example, and if a satellite passes over Singapore at roughly noon, 11:30 in the morning, I have access to the image in Skylight and the data around 4 p.m. So same day, and that helps with knowing the latency of the data. Also, while these satellites are globally operating, they're not taking the picture every single day over the same location, these Sentinel-2 system and Landsat system. So you're getting an image about every 2 or 3 days, depending on the orbit pattern. So it's really important to understand the schedules. Of course, satellite imagery is just a snapshot. It's taken at a certain time once on that day, and it depends on whether there's clouds or not. So you're not getting any satellite imagery in the evening, of course, because it's dark. Or if it's a cloudy day, which obviously frequently happens in the tropics and in Philippines and Southeast Asia, you're not going to necessarily be able to see all the ships that are out there. So everything has to be remembered with pros and cons. The latency of the image, the frequency of the revisit rate, and whether or not the weather is cooperating and at what time the image is taken. But that's where other forms of satellite data help augment. So another European Union satellite is called Sentinel-1, and it actually uses radar. The satellite is bouncing a radar signal off the Earth and then collecting it back at the satellite. And it is not affected by clouds, so it can bounce the radar and detect vessels, especially if they're, the larger they are, the brighter the reflection is. But it can even detect relatively small fishing vessels that are made of wood. Of course, wood is less reflective to radar than metal is, but it can still have a detection. And our Skylight AI model will also do the same thing, the correlation with AIS. So this is particularly helpful for monitoring fleets of fishing vessels that might not be broadcasting AIS. Again, very important to remember the revisit rate, how often the satellite is passing over the area. It's not every single day, but it's once every few days. And also the latency by the time the satellite image data is collected, but it takes the satellite to orbit the Earth, downlink it on the satellite's downlink station, and then transmit it. Once Skylight receives the data, it takes less than a minute for the model to work. The benefit of this radar data from Sentinel-1 is that clouds don't bother it. It can see the radar goes through clouds, and also it can collect day or night. One of the downsides is as you see in how the data is presented in that image, you can't, with your eyes, as a human, we can't determine what vessel that is. That's where AIS correlation is really important. Okay, so I've talked about electro-optical imagery. I've talked about radar imagery. And the next one that's very important for fishing is night lights. It's from the system called VIIRS, satellites that collect light source data on land and sea. So at sea, the light sources overwhelmingly come from ships. Obviously, this data is collected at night, but it's collected on a vast scale, and it's collected basically every evening. And the majority of the light sources will come from vessels and their lights. Occasionally, it will also detect the light sources from offshore oil platforms when they're burning the off gas. but the majority is from ships. And in this case, it's very useful for monitoring fishing fleets because, as you know, many fishing fleets use bright lights to attract the catch that they're harvesting. This, again, is collected on a daily or nightly basis, once a day. And it's very useful for monitoring a fleet of fishing vessels as they move day by day. So this is good for tracking a fleet of vessels over several days or weeks, and as they follow the catch that they're chasing. Very useful. And when it does correlate to AIS, there is a recommendation of a correlation. So as I mentioned in the beginning, the Skylight data is shared into EarthRanger. So those that are using EarthRanger and have a maritime area that they're interested in can get that feed into their of events into their EarthRanger profile. And that's usually good enough for the level of work that you're doing. But if you want to do a deep dive and use the full tools of Skylight in order to do deeper analysis, that's entirely possible, and you can get an account from Skylight. So that way you can link to from EarthRanger, which you're using maybe every day. You can link to the vessel that is highlighted in EarthRanger. You can go over to Skylight and then do deeper research, or you can just use Skylight if you're monitoring maritime every day on a regular basis. I'll highlight our data is also shared on a regular basis constantly via APIs into CVision, which some government agencies might be familiar with. That's the US government system they share with the Philippines and other countries. And also IORIS, which is the European Union capacity building program. They also are sharing, Skylight is also sharing our data into IORIS. So in both CVision and IORIS, as well as EarthRanger, you can easily see a feed of the Skylight data. And then if you needed to, you can go for a deep dive into Skylight. And there's just a snapshot of how we feed the data into EarthRanger. Now I'll talk with the time remaining about the new areas of research that we're working on. Skylight has built a tool using natural language processing. We call it Shippy. That's the nickname. Basically, it's a chat tool similar to ChatGPT that will help the analyst do their searches. So instead of having to learn all the detailed point and click of all the different functions, the user can just type in a query like, show me all the fishing vessels documented in AIS around around a particular island. You could pick the Scarborough Shoal or something like that. And because of the tool built with natural language processing like ChatGPT, it can recognize the query and give you a data pull from Skylight and give you an analysis. So basically, it will really help save time for the analyst, where they can just query the tool and get automated results that we've trained the model to recognize. The chat tool, Shippy is the name of it, is not out for all users yet. We're still testing it with select users, but should be released very soon. And I think that will be a significant game changer, particularly for anyone when you want to build a report. You'll be able to just query with a question into the chat tool and ask Shippy to help you build your report. Tell me how many vessels were detected last night, or tell me how many vessels were detected in this area doing fishing activity over the last week. Give me more information on this particular vessel. Questions like that. So this will be a significant time saver, especially for those in government agencies like BFAR that might be have in an operations center and conducting regular searches every day and needing to build your report. So I think that'll be the tool that helps a lot. Also, we're improving our detection capabilities on the vessels, always refining how well the AI model detects vessels in imagery. There are always false positives and false negatives, but the goal is to reduce those and optimize the detection tool. But also, we're training the model to make better predictions about where the vessel is heading to by doing dead reckoning and making predictive models. So that's work that's still ongoing. It's not in the public release yet, but that'll really help if you have a detected image of a dark vessel that was detected in a satellite image, at noon yesterday, you can quickly use the tool to estimate where the vessel might be today or in 3 days from now. Something that an analyst can do manually, but it might take several minutes. Now, Skylight will hopefully make that much faster and a more automated process. And then using Shippy will enable you just to ask the chat tool to do that for you, saving a significant amount of time. And lastly, we have another tool, again, that's not in the regular public use, but the Tip and Cue tool. It's enabling an automated way to access high-resolution satellite imagery that's commercially available and might cost money. So if an agency has budget for procuring high-resolution satellite imagery from partners, but they don't want to, they can use Skylight to set up based on an event when they're, for example, if there's a detection of fishing activity in a marine protected area, or if there was a dark vessel detected in a marine protected area, the Tip and Cue tool, the point of it is, think of it like a vending machine. It automatically orders a commercial high resolution imagery of the area where the event occurred and was triggered. And then you can hopefully get a high resolution image of the activity that you had an indication of. This one is not shared for free because the commercial imagery has to be purchased, but we're building a tool that enables the users to much more efficiently and also at a little bit of a better price, because Skylight has relationships with the satellite providers. You can order your own automated detections based on events. So we call that the Tip and Cue tool. This would be appropriate for agencies that might have a budget for high resolution satellite imagery to help their investigations, but they don't have the full budget to like hire an expert or get a complete package from one of the very expensive satellite providers. So any of those three, look forward to any of those three tools that we have coming out this year. Shippy, which is our natural language processing AI tool for doing queries, our enhanced analytics that will help you. And if any agency wanted to talk further about Tip and Cue, that would be a separate conversation about what the funding source for high resolution satellite imagery would be. But we have a tool that would make it a much more efficient way for your to access without having too many people involved. You just set it up and it automatically runs as long as it's been set up appropriately. Anyways, those are the three advanced tools that Skylight is working on. And I'll finish by highlighting our collaboration with the Joint Analytical Cell with the other organizations that you're familiar with. IMCS, Global Fishing Watch, TMT, C4ADS, and Skylight are all part of the JAC, the Joint Analytical Cell, and always working on illegal fishing problems. And with that, I will bid you farewell from Singapore. There was a rare clear image of a clear day, and turn back over to Tony and the team, and happy to take any questions if there's time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean, for sharing Skylight. We are now opening the floor for questions. Do we have any questions from our audience? Okay.
Yes, good morning. I'm Jesse from Ocean. I've been part of the beta testing participant of Skylight, but my observation with the current platforms that there are events that are flagged as phishing events, but in fact they are like cargo vessels, passenger boats. My question is, how can we filter them out to improve the detection?
Yeah, great. I understand the question. So just to reiterate, the question is, often there are events like phishing events that when you investigate, you learn are not phishing. So that is one of and how can you filter those out? Okay, so that is one of the reasons why AI doesn't replace people. AI is really good at highlighting this data, and the models work because it's been trained to recognize a pattern. But on both ends, there will always be in the middle there will be a percentage that gets it that gets it right. But on the end, on the probability curve, there will be false positives and false negatives always. So that's why the AI tool is really intended to help the analyst just filter through all the data that they would have otherwise had to spend, thousands of hours to filter. So really important to help that process is the context, knowing, and this is where the analyst is the best result. If they know that an area is where passenger ferries are operating, then you can create an area that filter and change your alerts to filter out the activity in areas where there's high frequency of passenger ferries. Similarly, by using building areas in Skylight, you can select specific geographic areas like a box, a polygon, for example, a marine protected area, and you can set up the timing so that you're only getting the events when you know that there shouldn't be other activity like ferries passing through. That's one way, is setting up really good filters and based on geographic areas. And then the other very important way is for every event detection, satellite, especially for satellite detections for dark vessels, there is a feedback button for every one, and the user can give feedback to Skylight for every detection and say whether it's accurate, or if it's not accurate, what was it? An example would be you open up a satellite detection of a dark vessel, but you see with your eyes that it's a cloud. For whatever reason, the AI model thought it was a ship. Is that giving the feedback that it was a false positive, and then explaining what that false positive was, a cloud, or there's a whole drop-down list of all the waves or algae or other things. That feedback is really important because it helps the engineers to improve the model. No AI tool will ever have zero false positives or false negatives. So it's not possible because it works on probabilities. What is important is the feedback to help improve the model. So that's why dialogues like this session and then our monthly online virtual sessions where the engineers often participate is really important to get your specific feedback as an analyst. You know your area best. The context of the data that the AI gives you is really important. And so enabling the tool, using the tool to set up automated alerts really helps. But at the end of the day, it's up to the analyst to really understand. So to answer your question, I think the most important thing is setting up geographic areas and time bounds to when you get your alerts, to give feedback on the detections, and so that the Skylight team can continuously adjust the model and participate in sessions like this, and also our virtual sessions where you can interact directly with the Skylight team engineers to give them more feedback. But at the end of the day, you have to recognize there will always be false positives and false negatives because it is an AI tool and the analyst actually knows best what's happening. So hopefully the tool is just helping you save time in order to focus your efforts on when and where there might be illicit activity. Hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Charlie. We have one more question over there.
Hello, good morning. I'm Alexander Aguilado from the Forest Management Bureau, the forestry sector of the Philippines. We are just curious because based on the presentation, the examples are used for maritime use. And we're also curious if we can use the Skylight to detect forest fire incidences, especially at night. Also, because it is where the time where illegal activities are at rise. Then, additionally, it can also detect other forest disturbances. And on forest fires, can it detect the rate of fire spread or its extent? It can.
Sure, thanks. Well, yeah, Skylight is intended for maritime activities, so it's not specifically designed for forest fires. However, I will say that the same data with the light source data, the VIIRS that we call night lights, that same technology from the actual satellite, and it's in particular U.S. Geological Survey satellites called VEERS. That satellite, not through Skylight, but through the data itself, they have a platform that is specifically designed and is freely available to users anywhere in the world for free. And that's the source of the Skylight data for the night lights for this at sea. But that one would be very useful for the forest fires, because that's exactly what it's designed for. And it's near real time, and it happens, it detects the imagery or detects the possible fire sources day and night. That tool is called FIRMS, FIRMS. I can send Tony the link and he can share with you. I think so. Skylight itself isn't designed for that. However, you could easily have a window open and take the data from FIRMS and then document it in Earth Ranger, including the link. And that would be a great way for an Earth Ranger user to manually mark where forest fires are occurring. And then I don't know if we have a way for automated, but that might be something to look into in the future. So similar to how Skylight in an automated way detects the vessels, perhaps in Earth Ranger, a side tool can be, an API can be set up to automatically mark the forest fires. I'm not sure about that. That would be up to the Earth Ranger team, but for sure they can manually mark them. I'll share the link to the firm's website, and then you can check it out. That's a very useful tool for detecting fire sources, including forest fires.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. Just to add to that, we do actually have an integration with the firm's data set. So if you want us to detect fires in terrestrial parks or coastal areas, we have an integration with the NASA firm's data. We also have an integration with Global Forest Watch, which produces alerts, fire alerts, and integrated deforestation alerts. So we have an integration with Earth Ranger for that data too. So those are the two main tools for detecting fire and deforestation. And there's another tool called Aurora Tech, whose data we can also integrate with Earth Ranger.
Okay, thank you for that, Tony. We have one more question for you, Charlie, before you go. The question is, what's one Skylight feature you wish users take better advantage of?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I think one that is particularly useful for this audience will be the links to, well, I'll give two. One is setting up the alerts with geographic areas so that you get an automated notification of any of the events that you're interested in. So setting up areas is the one that users can really improve their automation, and that requires having an area like a marine protected area that you want to set up, but also going in and selecting what you're interested in getting automatic alerts for, and then making sure that if you're on a team, that everyone on the team is getting the automated alert, not just one person, because if they go on holiday or something, they're not checking the email, all those automated alerts will pile up. So that's one. And the second that I'll mention is for if somebody's investigating a vessel that was detected and they are looking at the profile of the vessel on Skylight, we have links that link to our partner organizations in the JAC. So we have a link that you can go into, for example, if you're looking into a particular vessel, and there's a link to the profile of that vessel on Global Fishing Watch. That's part of our collaboration through the JAC with other entities. So to show that we're collaborating and complementing each other, Skylight is really useful so that you can link to the tools and data from our partner organizations like Global Fishing Watch and C4ADS, and you can do a deeper investigation through their tools into particular vessels.
Okay, thank you so much, Charlie. Let's give Charlie a round of applause. Thank you for joining us with Charlie.
Thank you. My pleasure. Good luck with the rest of the conference.